Entrando por tus oídos hasta llegar al centro de tus emociones, ADR Networks está en este momento
activando tus sentidos.
ADR Networks presenta.
Yo soy Carla Estefanía y esto es Holicast, hackeando tu cuerpo y mente. En este espacio discutiremos diferentes herramientas basadas en ciencia para optimizar tu salud física y mental. ¡Comenzamos! Hola, ¿cómo están, Holicasters? Bienvenidísimos a este primer episodio finalmente de Holicast. El día de hoy estoy muy emocionada de platicarles las cosas tan asombrosas que me puse a investigar para el día de hoy. Hoy vamos a tener a un invitado muy especial que va a estar conectándose con nosotros desde Chicago. Lo quise invitar a él porque la verdad es una persona que tiene muchísima experiencia en esta onda del biohacking. Tiene muchísima experiencia implementando ya biohacks, que como ya les había explicado en la vez pasada, en la edición pasada, son herramientas basadas en el conocimiento profundo del cuerpo humano y que puedes aplicar para llegar a ciertas metas. Entonces, él tiene muchísima experiencia de esto y hoy nos va a venir a platicar algunas curiosidades y cómo es que los aplica a su vida y cómo ha afectado y ha impactado en su vida. Uno de los métodos en los que me gustaría ahondar un poquito más es en un método que se llama Wim Hof. No sé si se ha vuelto un poco popular en los últimos meses o años, tal vez, pero es esta onda de meterte al agua con hielo y, una temperatura de agua muy baja, en donde pues no es tan fácil lograrlo y además quedarte ahí, ¿no? Entonces sí, se ha vuelto medio popular. Entonces justamente vamos a hablar de esto, de este personaje que le llaman el Iceman, el hombre de hielo, porque justamente se empezó a hacer cosas medias locas como nadar en agua polar y literalmente meterse en un hoyo de un lago congelado y nadar y salir del otro lado. Así es que no muchas personas, o más bien solo él en el mundo, tiene esta capacidad de tolerar estas temperaturas y estos climas, estas circunstancias como tan extremas. Entonces, llamó la atención de muchos científicos y porque aparte desarrolló un método que le llama el método Wim Hof, que se trata de respirar, enfriar o someternos al frío y meditar. Entonces, él desarrolló este método que ahorita hay cursos y todo para certificarse de eso. Y bueno, se ha visto que tiene muchísimos beneficios en el cuerpo, reduce el estrés, la ansiedad, mejora el estado de ánimo, nos da energía, vitalidad y además mejora el performance físico. Entonces, entre muchos otros beneficios ya se han hecho estudios que, aunque todavía se requiere mayor información, ya han sugerido que puede ser un método muy eficaz, por ejemplo, para tratar la depresión o para tratar enfermedades autoinmunes o incluso como terapia para sobrellevar procesos de adicción. Entonces, yo les voy a contar el día de hoy cómo y por qué tiene estos efectos en el cuerpo, cuáles son estas adaptaciones que tenemos a corto y a largo plazo. Así es que bueno, de esto se va a tratar el día de hoy, así es que los invito a que se queden. Y pues ya, para no hacerlo más largo, quiero darle la bienvenida a Anthony Di Clementi. Él tiene un proyecto que se llama Biohacking Secrets y bueno, él está aquí con nosotros desde Chicago. Hola, Anthony. How is it going?
It's going great, Carla. Thanks for having me on.
No, thank you for accepting my invitation. I'm really, really glad to have you here.
I'm happy to be here.
Well, Anthony, I was just giving a little introduction about yourself, but I would like you to tell them a little bit more about yourself and also how did you get involved in all this biohacking world?
Mm-hmm.
And how'd you start it?
Yeah. um, so I've been a personal trainer, NCSF certified personal trainer, a certified nutrition specialist, and I was doing that for a long time. I taught yoga and Pilates, and I worked at one of the best personal training gyms in the country in Chicago. And I was very focused on nutrition and exercise and mindset. And what ended up happening was I got really sick and realized that a lot of the tools that I had were not effective at bringing my body back into balance. So there are situations that can occur. Like I ended up getting something called Lyme disease, where you can get bit by a tick, and then it sort of like attacks your nervous system, and you start getting really fatigued, and your body aches. And it opened my eyes to the fact that the tools that I was equipped with could not handle everything that life can throw at us. You know, it works if you're healthy and in shape, but if the body gets out of balance, sometimes we need a wider array of tools. And that was when I started getting really into biohacking and how to bring the body back into balance, how to know what type of laboratory tests that you need to order to see what's going on inside the body, how to interpret those laboratory tests, and then translate that into a personalized game plan to help you look, feel, and perform your best and heal. In my case, I ended up getting myself back to a state of better health than I'd ever been in my life. And I took a lot of the tools that I had learned on that journey, and I wrote a book called The Biohacker's Guide to Upgraded Energy and Focus. And we sold close to 100,000 copies of that. And I launched a podcast called The Biohacking Secrets Show. And we're consistently a top 100 podcast in health and wellness. We've had on people like who you mentioned, Wim Hof, the Iceman, 27-time Guinness World Record holder. Him and I actually spent like 4 days together in a house in California, hanging out with Dr. Andrew Huberman from Huberman Lab. We all presented at Teal Capital, and that was a really fun experience. Tony Horton from P90X, a lot of podcasting and creating videos, and then coaching a variety of Olympic athletes and high-level entrepreneurs and business owners, and helping them do this for themselves.
Wow, Anthony, I must have some details I didn't know about yourself. It's a very interesting story, how you got involved in this. I love the words that you used, which was to get back in balance. I believe that there is no much people that understand what does that means and how big is that and how important is to have balance inside and outside, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But how is your current health situation?
It's good. It's good. Yeah. I think that like there's always one of the things with health is like we often put it on we create this vision of like what perfect health looks like to us, you know, like how we want our body to look, and we're gonna wake up in the morning and we're gonna have limitless energy, and it's gonna go all day until we decide we want to go to bed, and then and you know, and we're gonna be connected to the people around us and spiritually, you know, tapped into God and our Creator. And the reality is that health is dynamic and it's always changing. And you get to this point that you thought was that definition of like, you know, the peak of the mountain, and then you realize there's other challenges, or because you focus so much on your body, maybe your spirit was neglected and you need to focus a little bit more there. Or so it's sort of a little bit like spinning plates, where there's never this, I never find myself like, wow, I'm in perfect health in every category that is important to me. But if I'm happy and I'm enjoying my life and I feel like I'm a good person and I'm serving you know, the people that listen to our podcast and that I coach, and being there for the people who I love, my friends and family members, then yeah, it's a pretty good place to be.
I mean, it's a very romantic, probably, way to see it. Or people can say it's very romantic to say, like, listen to your body. Like, if it makes you happy, it's okay. If it's makes you feel well, it's okay. And honestly, that is like for me, it became like my biggest rule to measure my life in general, and my health
Yeah,
too.
I love
And
that.
yeah, I know, no, and for real, you just have to really learn to connect, and to learn how to interpretate, yeah,
Hmm.
the signals that your body's sending all the time, right?
And trusting that. I think that is the highest level. Is
Right.
like, it's not what your Aura ring tells you about your sleep or your Whoop band. It's how do you feel in the morning when you wake up? How's your energy throughout the day? You know, and realizing that, like, when we only get our information about health from experts or studies, oftentimes we are diminishing our own innate intelligence and our ability to, like, to feel our way, and to interpret, like, to use our emotional guidance system and our physical guidance system to steer us in the right direction, you know. And I think that that's beautiful. That's probably the best benchmark that you could use.
I totally agree with that, and I hope that more people realize and understands the importance of this, and that our health, it's literally 100% on us, and medicines are here to help us, but doesn't has to be the first option. And I believe
Mhm.
that the idea is that if I'm sick, my first option is medicine,
Mhm.
and we left aside the things that we can start doing and stop doing too, in order to get better. So I hope at some point that can shift, that medicine is there for helping you, of course, in a very good way, but we also have to um, get better in some other aspects, and it's not always on the doctor's mm, it's not always doctor's fault, or the medicine is not working. It depends a lot of things on us.
Mhm.
um well, Anthony, I would like to ask you because I'm very curious, like, how is a day in Anthony D. Clementi's life? Like, how like, just a normal day for you, how is it?
Yeah. So I'm I'm naturally more of a night owl, and I find myself a lot of times, like, I start getting really energized and creative later in the day. And for a long time I tried to fight that. And I would be like, "No, I need to go to bed when the sun goes down." And I would be, like, taking all of this, like, CBD and melatonin and trying to, like, force my body to go to sleep just because I thought that was what I should do. When in reality, a lot of times, like, I'd just lay in bed and I'd be awake anyhow, and I'd get all these creative ideas, and I'm like, I could be doing, like, a lot of the cool projects that I didn't have time to do today right now if I just wasn't trying to force, like, a square peg into a round hole. You know what I mean? So I've been more so, like, allowing myself flexibility with my tendencies, you know. So, like, last night I was up until 2 a.m. and I went to bed and I slept for I just set my alarm, the timer, for like 7.5 hours. And I slept 7.5 hours, and I woke up. I had a couple client calls today, and I had another podcast I was on with called Roadman Cycling with a cyclist in Dublin. So I did his podcast and yours, and I was gonna go to the gym. I had like a strength and cardio and sauna session planned, and then I realized I didn't have enough time to do that. So I've got a setup down in the basement that has red lights. So red light therapy, which is really good for like boosting collagen and reducing inflammation and helping with recovery. So I've got this whole area with like a bunch of red lights coming from every direction that you can stand in and get your whole body. So I went down there and I did like 10 minutes of red light therapy while the sauna heated up. And I've got something that is, it's called adaptive contrast. It's basically like an oxygen concentrator that fills this huge bag with 90% oxygen. And you can use it. We've used it with, I coached a number of guys that were on the Canadian Olympic hockey team that won a few gold medals, and they played for the Blackhawks and stuff. So we would use it with like these professional athletes where you would do your high intensity interval training and you're wearing this mask that has a switch that's connected to this bag of oxygen. And you would do a sprint at like 100% effort, you know, like your high intensity interval training on an Aerodyne bike or an exercise bike or something like that. And you would sprint for like 15 seconds. And when your body is like needing oxygen, and then you flip the switch and you start breathing 90% oxygen. And what it does is it's like cellular exercise. It starts training your mitochondria and your cells to get more efficient at utilizing oxygen for energy and converting that oxygen into ATP. You know, so you have this little period where you're exercising at a very high intensity in a low oxygen or a normal oxygen state. You know, oxygen's like 20% roughly in the air around us, and then you flip it to 90% when your cells are sort of thirsty and able to uptake a lot more oxygen. So that's how we do it with athletes. But what I'll do is I'll go and I'll sit in the sauna, and then I'll put on the oxygen mask, and I'll usually start out and I'll meditate for 20 or 30 minutes, just while breathing, 90% oxygen through my nose. And then I'll do a few rounds of different types of breath work, where I'm doing like more activating breathing, usually big inhales, short, quick exhales, and just to kind of like wake myself up. And I did that before I jumped on calls. Oh, and then I took a cold shower afterwards. So that was kind of my day today.
You didn't, ¿cómo se dice? You didn't disappointed me at all. Like I was expecting all these things like are not like a normal, is not part of the of the days of many people. At least it's not my case. I would love to have all those gadgets.
Yeah.
I mean, I have been following them like on like Google and internet, and like all the social media. You can see all these new things, and I'm like researching. But I would love to have more access to those. But I mean, it's amazing how you can do all these things in your life. And I want to ask how those things have been affecting your life. Like, do you remember your life before this and now, and how is it?
Mm-hmm.
How it changed it, how it impact your life?
Yeah. Well, I try so many different things, and most of them I don't keep, right? Because I don't find that the juice is worth the squeeze. The amount of time or energy that goes into it, maybe it doesn't align with my goals, or the return on that invested time and energy, doesn't make sense. But there's a number of things that I've kept over the years. One of them is, cold therapy. So either doing cold showers, or as I really like to do it, like getting in an ice bath or a cold lake or river. That one's changed my life in so many ways. Like I used to have a lot of difficulty sleeping. And when I tracked my sleep, I would never really get a lot of like deep sleep, which is the most restorative kind. You've got like your deep and your REM sleep. And so I started doing these like I started jumping in Lake Michigan in the winter time to do these cold plunges, mostly to kind of challenge myself, but it's also really good for burning fat, and it gives you a lot of energy throughout the day. It's like it gives you like a 200 to 300% increase in this brain chemical or neurotransmitter called norepinephrine.
Yeah.
And so I would feel really good afterwards. But what surprised me was like all of a sudden my deep sleep, I would go from 30 minutes of deep sleep to like 2 hours of deep sleep on the days that I jumped in the lake. And I was like, whoa, I tried all this melatonin, all these different things. And all I needed to do was like get the right amount of stress for 2 or 3 minutes. And all of a sudden, like I'm sleeping better. So there's a lot of things like that have been amazing and transformational, where when you find like the little things, the high leverage habits that allow you to sleep better or burn more fat or feel like you have more mental clarity and ability to focus throughout the day, or whatever it is that's important to you, you know, like I think that's part of what's drawing a lot of people to biohacking and just mastering their health and figuring out, like, out of all the tools that exist, which ones are most relevant for me or you or, you know, the person listening, based on whatever they want to achieve in their life. And like, and that we have control over a lot of this stuff. Exactly. You know, it's a lot different than our parents' generation, where it was like, just live and make money and make babies. And when you get sick, you know, go get a medication or a surgery, and then at some point you die. Yeah. You know, a lot of people now are like, well, I kind of want to see my abs, and I want to like feel amazing during the day, and I want to get stronger, and I want to, you know, whatever it is, like we're just like scratching the surface of how much control we have over our body and mind and spiritual well-being.
I know. Anthony, I want to get deeper in the techniques, of course, but we have to go for a little shortcut. Mm-hmm. And we will be back in 2 minutes.
Voy y vengo. No te vayas, que en unos minutos estamos de vuelta aquí en Holicast.
Hola, yo soy Javi Gamboa y te invito a que no te pierdas todos los jueves en punto de las 9 de la noche Naked Lunch, con lo mejor del rock y el metal, el soundtrack de tu vida, entrevistas y mucho más. Ayúdanos a desnudar a nuestros invitados por ADR Networks, activando tus sentidos. Yeah.
Hola, yo soy la doctora Verónica Ortega y te invito a aprender de medicina funcional, salud, bienestar, cocina natural, ejercicio, mindfulness y mucho más todos los lunes en punto de las 7 en mi programa Salud y Bienestar por ADR Network, activando y sanando tus sentidos.
Qué cool que sigues con nosotros. Ya estamos de regreso aquí en Holicast.
¿Y Anthony? Okay. I was like, where is Anthony? Anthony, thank you so much for all these experiences that you are sharing with us. Welcome to Mexico, by the way. Many Mexicans are listening today.
I love Mexico.
Have you ever been here?
Of course. Yeah, a bunch of times.
Mexico City?
No, I missed that trip. All my friends went for a bachelor party, and I heard it was amazing. But I ended up I couldn't make that trip to Mexico City, but they all raved about it and said it was just phenomenal.
Well, whenever you want to come, just let me know. We will figure it out.
I appreciate it.
Well, let's keep moving with this. I have so many questions. I really don't know how much of them to ask, but let's start with. We were talking about cold baths and in general. I mean, we know the Wim Hof method is based like in breathing techniques, meditation, and cold exposure.
Mm-hmm.
So the three techniques by themselves have effects on in our bodies,
Mm-hmm.
and but the method, the Wim Hof method. Now that I know that you had the experience to be with him,
Mm-hmm.
can you tell us a little bit more about what is the idea to apply a method?
Yeah. So Wim is amazing. Like, for your listeners who may not be familiar, he has like 27 Guinness World Records, and he's really redefined a lot of what's possible in terms of like pushing the boundaries of our physiology. The methods that he's put out there that have been very helpful to a lot of people are a certain type of breath work, where you're doing this intentional hyperventilation. That's a very activating way of breathing. It's very focused on a deep and quick inhale, followed by a short and kind of shallow exhale, and you just repeat that for like 30 to 40 breaths, and then you hold your breath for a period of time. And in a similar fashion to, it's almost like a free version of what I described earlier with the adaptive contrast training, where you're exercising really, really hard and you're breathing 20% oxygen, and then you flip the switch and you start breathing 90% oxygen. So when you're doing this Wim Hof style breathing, you're hyperventilating for these 30 or 40 breaths. And part of that, you're also like breathing off a lot of carbon dioxide. And then you hold your breath, usually with empty lungs, right? So when you're holding your breath with empty lungs, a lot of your listeners will know that your CO2 levels start to rise, your carbon dioxide levels start to go up, right? And there's something called the Bohr effect in the body, which is you have all this oxygen in your body, but it's usually bound to your cells and hemoglobin. It's not able to be utilized. But as your CO2 levels start going up, like when you're holding your breath, that oxygen gets released and is able to be utilized by your cells. So they call it oxygen dissociation with hemoglobin, right? So it's kind of counterintuitive, but like as CO2 levels go up, your body actually releases oxygen and is able to utilize it. And you also train your cells to get more efficient, right? By having these long periods where you're like holding your breath with no air in your lungs as long as you can. Your body has to get good at finding available oxygen because you need oxygen to live and make energy, right? And then when you get to that point where you can't take it anymore, you take a big deep breath in and then kind of squeeze. And usually, like, another option that a lot of people do is you'll ascend the energy up to the top of your head. So this is like taken from a lot of yogic practices. It's the ascending the Kundalini energy up from the base of your spine all the way up the spine into the top of your head, and you kind of imagine squeezing your energy into the pineal gland of your brain. And Dr. Joe Dispenza does a lot of that in his meditations as well. It's creating that piezoelectric effect. and then you repeat that for maybe 3 rounds or 5 rounds. So that covers a little bit of the breath work. It's kind of like a free version of the expensive biohack adaptive contrast training. Does that make sense?
A lot of sense. And you know what, like, I don't know if many people has tried this at home, but literally I do these exercises when because I started doing it like counting. I mean, hyperventilation can cause dizziness, right?
Mhm.
And people can feel like weird at the beginning, and the point
Yeah.
is that you get used to that changes in your pH, in the pH of your blood, and as you say, the exchange in the concentration of the gases
Mhm.
inside of your body, right? Like
Yeah.
all these causes like different pressure in your blood and other changes in your body that probably you are not used to, and then you have all these symptoms that you are like also anxiety. You feel like, right?
Yeah, it's very activating for a lot of people, and people who might tend to be a little anxious when they're first getting used to it, they might experience that, and then a lot of times it goes away and you move through it,
Yeah.
but at the beginning, you're getting a bit of an increase in cortisol and adrenaline and some of these stress hormones. But the idea is an acute stress that you are bringing on intentionally can be utilized to make you stronger and more resilient. Whereas the stress that most people get is chronic stress where they're stressed all the time.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different, right?
Yeah, like stress and distress, right? Like the difference
Yeah.
between those
Yeah.
concepts, which one is like has positive effects and the other one has negative effects. And mindset makes a big difference here too, right? Like if you are getting into this experience in general or a cold bath with the mindset of that is going to be beneficial for you and is going to bring some benefits to your health, then these effects are going to be better, or you can improve the outcome. Rather, if you go there with doubts and you are like scared of getting into the water,
Right.
that can cause like, I don't know if the positive effect, but it probably is going to be hard for you to stay as long as is needed to have like the positive effects, right?
Yeah, that's
Or-
that's a good point. There's a few things to mention. So, if someone listening is a lot of your listeners are probably already very different from like the general population. A lot of people don't seek out information about their health and how to take have more control over their physiology and all of these things. So I think we're already dealing with a special type of person with your listeners. But it is good to know that like you always want to be safe. And especially as you're experimenting with different breathing techniques and cold exposure, you want to put practices in place where you're not going to get hurt. So like when you're practicing like the breathing techniques, for example, it's usually good to learn them sitting or lying down. So because you can get lightheaded and you can get dizzy and you don't want to fall and hit your head. You also don't want to practice the breathing techniques in cold water because you could have a shallow water blackout and drown, right? So anyway, you just want to be kind of smart about those things and recognize that there are going to be some unfamiliar sensations that you may experience. Lightheadedness was already mentioned, but there's also something called tetany, where your hands can get almost tight, and like you get like little Tyrannosaurus Rex raptor claw hands, and that's also can be normal. The face can tighten up, or you can experience like numbness or tingling. It's all temporary, and it usually means you're doing it correctly, and it's not. There are no long-term issues if done in a very concentrated and deliberate manner, like Wim Hof teaches. And he's got an app that people can download and a ton of information all over the internet with different breathing techniques and cold exposure and all that.
Yeah, and another thing that I have been feeling with this breathing thing is that when you, as you said, empty your lungs and you stay there, it's when I feel, at least personally, the most the challenging part. Um, um, just to stay there makes me like very desperate, but
Mhm.
it goes. It goes down as I do it more and more. Like as I
Mhm.
say, I start with seconds of holding it. I count
Mhm.
mentally,
Mhm.
and I go 4, 6, 7, 8, 10 seconds. And how long do you have to like? Is the maximum that you have getting like empty lung air
Yeah,
holding? I
I've
mean, how
had I did it the I well, so the other day, the last time I did it and was keeping track, I was breathing pure oxygen or 90%
Mm,
oxygen. So take that into account, but I had multiple holds that were over 4 minutes, and the only time I think I've only gone above 5 minutes like a few times. Um, but it's also it depends too, where it's like I like to do it where when I've done I have like a lot of different ways that I'll do it, but I'll do the breathing, and then sometimes my last breath, I'll keep some air in my lungs and I'll stay there for a little bit, and then when after maybe a minute or 2 minutes, then I'll exhale completely and kind of hiss to make sure there's no more oxygen, and then I'll stay for as long as I can from there, so that I'm getting like a little bit of that training with air in my lungs and then also with empty lungs, and
okay, yeah.
I enjoy that, and that feels pretty good too.
Yeah, it's very good to reduce anxiety.
Very good. Yeah,
It's very good. Yeah.
that's one of the reasons that a lot of people do it. Like, um, one of a number of my clients have started doing cold therapy, and even like first thing in the morning, because it wakes you up, and just like there's a lot of time in the morning where many people feel groggy, or they're a slow starter, and if you sort of force yourself to like get into an ice bath or even do a cold shower, it can sort of condense that unproductive time, and you're awake and you're alert. And so some people will even like, we'll have clients that'll wake up at 6 a.m. and they'll jump in the ice bath for 2 or 3 minutes, and then they'll go get a workout. And after that, they're like good to go all day. Um, but the benefit, like, yes, ice baths are great for burning fat, and as I mentioned, like increasing the brain chemicals like norepinephrine. But a lot of people do it because we're so stressed, and they find that it's like one of my clients, Jordan, jokes that it's like the ice baths are like his Xanax. Like he gets in there for like 3 to 5 minutes, and he doesn't meditate or do any of that. But when he comes out of the ice bath, he's just chill and relaxed. It allows him to feel more centered and more peaceful. And he hasn't found anything that close to that besides like drugs. So I think for a lot of people, it's a way to have a little bit more control over their state, and being able to get out of some of these like more agitated, excitatory states, and bring themselves back into feeling peaceful and centered and calm.
Yeah, now that you're touching this subject, I would like to get more like into like leaving aside the breathing techniques now, just going to the cold bath.
Hmm.
And one of the things that I was reading was they have been suggesting that it could help to treat addictions because of, as you said, adrenaline, noradrenaline, and
Hmm.
dopamine
Hmm.
shot is released a little like when you are done with the cold bath,
Hmm.
and the dopamine levels are actually like high levels of dopamine that you can experience and that persist for a good amount of time,
Hmm.
and this could help people with addictions to start like leveling up like their dopamine back, right?
Mhm.
So I mean, let's talk more about the hormones release, because it can have like effects in a short term and also long term adaptations in your body, right? Like the cold baths.
Yeah.
So we could
Yeah.
say that the hormonal release is like a very short term or an immediate response that you have.
Yes, it's one of them for sure. So there's
Yeah, one of them. Yeah.
a tremendous amount of our activities and the way that we feel in our mind is based on these chemicals in our brain called neurotransmitters, and the main ones are serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine or adrenaline, and GABA. And there's some others, acetylcholine and whatnot, but and deficiencies or imbalances in those neurotransmitters can, if we have a deficiency in an excitatory neurotransmitter like dopamine, if your dopamine levels are low, you may feel apathetic or tired, or like you don't have any drive or motivation, or your libido and your like desire to pursue the opposite sex is diminished, right? If you have a deficiency in something like GABA, which is an inhibitory neurotransmitter, meaning like it's a calming neurotransmitter, if that's low, you might feel anxious and stressed, and like loud noises and small uncertain changes in your plans are very aggravating and agitating, right? So much of addiction comes down to we're sort of medicating ourselves in some capacity. And it really goes beyond addiction, but our food choices, working out, the substances that we put in our body, we're self-regulating. And we're trying to find that balance, that homeostasis that we talked about earlier. Just in this case, it's with the neurotransmitters of our brain. And cold therapy is a natural way that scientific research has shown causes a 200 to 300% increase in norepinephrine or noradrenaline. And it also boosts dopamine and some of these other things. But so for people that tend to be underactivated or fatigued or depressed, or even a little bit anxious in the right situations, ice baths can bring those neurotransmitters up to levels where they feel better throughout the day and they feel happier and more balanced. We're living in a world realistically where a lot of people just there's not enough good acute stress in our lives. Things have gotten so comfortable that if you don't put the stress on yourself, you don't experience it. A lot of people, if they wanted to, probably do, but you could sit around all day watching Netflix and eating, TV dinners and that might feel good in the short term, but it eventually becomes more painful because like what makes our brain and body strong and resilient and ultimately able to produce the neurotransmitters and hormones that we need to feel alive is stress. So having tools like cold therapy, which can be a cold shower or an ice bath or jumping in a cold river or stream, all those things are ways to provide the same results that substances and drugs and other addictive tendencies might be being utilized to produce.
It's just like if you imagine the life that our ancestors were having, like they were like all the time hunting, looking for food, trying to survive, and all these things like were releasing hormones inside of our bodies, and now we are lacking of those due to the comfort, as you said, that we are getting with this society that we have been building up. And depression is a disease of this modern world, right? So also to treat depression, cold baths can have a very positive effect by exactly turning how do you say that, yeah, like turning up these circuits by our the natural releasing of hormones, right? So yeah, and which other well, let's necesito ir a un corte. Ay, perfecto. I was just asking something. Let's go like okay. See, we have to go for a little short, and then we will be back.
Sure.
Thank you, Anthony.
Of course.
Voy y vengo. No te vayas, que en unos minutos estamos de vuelta aquí en Holicast.
Hola amigos, yo soy Mike y los quiero invitar todos los viernes a la 1 de la tarde a que sintonicen Magic Mike, donde encontrarán las mejores sugerencias para qué ver, qué leer o a dónde ir. No se lo pierdan, viernes 1 de la tarde por ADR Networks, activando tus sentidos.
Algunos dicen que el Café de las 10 es el programa más interesante de Internet.
Otros dicen que el Café de las 10 es el programa más inútil de Internet. La verdad es que no lo sabemos.
Lo que sí sabemos es que de las 10 de la mañana a las 12 del día vas a pasar un rato muy agradable hablando de diferentes temas como
noticias, videojuegos, actualidad, videojuegos, política, videojuegos, salud.
Mira, no te lo pierdas. De lunes a viernes a las 10 de la mañana, escucha el Café de las 10 en ADR Networks.
Activando tus sentidos.
Escúchenos, perros.
Qué cool que sigues con nosotros. Ya estamos de regreso aquí en Holicast.
Anthony, we are back. So we have still some time left, but I would like to go like we know that cold baths have been used for athletes to get better recovery due to its capacity to and the anti-inflammatory properties that has, right? But I would like to better go to the to put that a little bit aside. That's another benefit from cold baths. But I would like also to get more into the brown fat cells, las células pardas. Yeah, I think it's brown, right? It's called
Yeah. So good job. The ice, the cold, it's been shown in the scientific literature to activate something called brown adipose tissue, which is also known as like fat burning fat. It's the kind of fat that babies have a lot of. It's much more metabolically active than the white fat tissue that adults tend to accumulate either through like a sedentary lifestyle or eating hyper palatable processed food and all that stuff. So yeah.
No, what do you think when my mom used to yell at me, Carla, wear a sweater, it's cold outside. I was just playing, I was a kid, and she was cold, but not me. Like kids have this capacity of or more resistance to cold.
Absolutely. There's a lot to that. I think that a lot of people with germ theory and all of that, like they got it. You're gonna catch a cold. You're gonna catch a cold. And if you get cold, then your immune system's going to be weakened, and all of a sudden you're going to get sick. And I think a lot of people still kind of believe that. So that's a part of it. But yeah, it's we're realizing more and more that like children living where they're playing in dirt and exposed to the different organisms in the soil, and it's actually good for their microbiome, and being out in these situations where maybe you were cold. Like I used to hate wearing pants. I loved wearing shorts, even when it was like winter time.
I thought that you pantless.
Just period. Yeah, no
Pantsless.
pants. No pants. I got arrested
No
a
pants,
lot.
dude.
I got arrested a lot growing up. Until we finally got that under control. But yeah, I don't know. I just I was the same way. I never wanted to wear a whole bunch of extra layers. And I think we're realizing now that that does help build resilience, and also as we get older, our different glands and hormone systems don't work as well. So a very common problem, especially with women and men, is their thyroid function starts to decrease, right? Your thyroid, it's this little gland in your neck that controls your metabolism and something called thermoregulation, which is your body's capacity to regulate its internal temperature. And so as stress and toxins and infections, autoimmunity can start to diminish the thyroid's capacity to maintain temperature and homeostatic balance in the body, you can feel maybe your hands and feet get cold. Your circulation isn't as good. So your mom might have been projecting her experience onto you. I don't know how your mom's thyroid is. Maybe it's great, right? But it's possible she was feeling the same temperature outside, and it's freezing cold, Carla needs to put on a jacket, but you were a young kid and your thyroid was great, so it didn't affect you,
I know. I'm gonna talk to her about it.
Yeah, let's get your mom's thyroid tested immediately. I'm concerned now.
Yeah.
I've worked myself up into a frenzy about your mom's thyroid.
Let's go back. We have 5 minutes more, and I would like to 3 minutes. Oh my god.
We just lost 2 minutes.
I don't know how. I want to go a little bit deeper with all these fat brown adipose tissue.
Yeah, skipped over that a little bit.
Brown.
We can go deeper.
Yeah.
Okay. So the cold, the ice baths, they activate this brown adipose tissue, this fat burning fat, and it's a way of getting the body. It's sort of like cellular exercise. You know how I was talking about, I enjoy sitting in the sauna and breathing oxygen. It gets my body and my cells a lot of the benefits of exercise while I'm relaxing and meditating. Well, similarly, the ice baths and what they're able to do, it's sort of like a form of cellular exercise. While you build this mental strength and resilience and this expansion of your comfort zone, you're also burning fat. Right? So I think a lot of people, if you gave them the choice and you're okay, would you rather do 40 minutes of fasted cardio first thing in the morning or a 5-minute ice bath? Some people might choose cardio, but a lot of people would choose an ice bath, right? And they can exist together where a synergistic strategy like zone 2 fasted cardio does not activate brown adipose tissue, right? But the ice bath does. So if you do an ice bath before your cardio or your strength training, then you're activating multiple fat burning pathways in unison. And it's a way of not only exercising the cells, but also changing your body while sitting on your butt.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, so brown fat cells are in charge of thermoregulation, right? So while you are inside there, your body needs to warm up. Mm-hmm. So you start burning more calories, but also if you extend the exposition to cold baths and you do it like a regular thing, it actually has the potential to change, to turn on and off certain genes. Right. Mm-hmm. So I have to go and we can build more of this type of cells. So Anthony, thank you so much for today. We have to go, But thank you so much for coming and for giving me this time and for
Thank you for having me.
giving us all these stories. It was a great hour with you. Thank you so much.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Muchas gracias, Holicasters. Pues se nos acabó el tiempo, pero nos vemos en nuestra próxima sesión. Los quiero. Bye.
Ya no les quito más mi tiempo. Recuerden comerse sus verduras y sonrían, que es gratis. Esto fue Holicast, hackeando tu cuerpo y mente. Nos vemos la próxima.
Entrando por tus oídos hasta llegar al centro de tus emociones, ADR Networks está en este momento
activando tus sentidos.